Already and Not Yet, by the Inspiring Christian. While many are now openly calling out the wrongness and deceit of the various national and international institutions that were once presented as reliable and honest and even beneficial for our societies and humanity as a whole, they are really building on the work undertaken by the countless others who've been calling these things out for centuries, millennia. It does seem clear, though, that there is an irreversible shift in the general conscious awareness and attitude of people, and that what once was hidden from the many is now coming into the full and glorious shining light of truth. This is heartening to see, especially for those who've worked away patiently, either publicly or behind the scenes over thousands of years, bridging the gap between the darkness and the light. Too long have people dwelt in uneasy ignorance, brought up on fear generation after generation. And now, while the vitriol spews, and despite the open disharmony of it all, my heart warms at what these changes herald, the false being brought to the light, in all its shame, pride and humiliation. Excellent. So for those who've not wanted to consider why it is thus, or who think only now something has changed, please be aware that this is not really the case. The ways and means change with the changing times and developments, but the aim was and is always the same: deceive, dis-ease, subjugate and control. Groundhog Day for centuries. What has changed is the scale of the reveal. Increasingly more people now see it, and technology allows us to share it. No longer hidden, the old system cannot cease to disintegrate. Brought into the light of truth, falseness dissolves. Not only that, but those who honestly worked within those structures, having learned what they could and seen the corruption and unnecessary waste, are now offering alternative options for developing new systems, or managing and navigating the former ones more successfully, honestly and truthfully, without deceit, as it should be. The pattern is changing. What was meant for evil is being used for good. And this will always be the case here. But even if things don't change as quickly as we'd like, and even if very little changes in our own lifetimes, except the faces and the names, there is one thing that's certain: we can change our relationship to it. It's neither resignation, nor is it shouting about how awful everything is. It's about the quiet but resolute decision to stand your ground and not agree with or concede to what is most obviously false and wrong, and to seek out what is true and real. In doing this, we learn to reconcile what we see playing out in front of us, and to go deeper into observing and understanding the forces that are playing out in our lives. To learn to choose the right and reject the wrong, in and outside of ourselves, in honesty, sincerity, and without hypocrisy. For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops. But it would be a mistake to assume things are not playing out as they must, or that anything is out of control or wrong, as it were, if you can bear that for just a moment. We must learn to hold the paradox calmly and with insight in the palm of a single hand. It is impossible that no offences should come. but woe to him through whom they do come. And while the mainstream propaganda machine still sucks in the weak, gullible and vain, exalting them on screen, as long as they continue to promote the false as true, distracting people from making informed, intelligent, mature choices, then, as Isaiah says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Human beings, as wonderful and as fallible as we are not solely to blame for the long-standing corruption now finally being revealed. Our minds are easily trained, especially when we're young. And it's one of our greatest and easily exploited weaknesses that few of us like to acknowledge that we've been misled. Generally, we like to be considered intelligent, independent, even critical thinkers, rather than acknowledging our own naivety. Unfortunately, it's that petty childlike pride which works against us. Or perhaps we simply want an easy life, not to have to think too much about it either ways, settle into a comfort zone and switch off. This lack of self-inquiry, honesty and humility means we can be coerced into agreeing with wrongness rather than admit to our own fragile gullibility, our own childishness. Not only that, it disturbs our outlook of the world and our responsibilities. I suspect this unveiling, this apocalypse, must initially have had to happen slowly, but it does appear now to be gathering pace in line with true metaphysical principles contained throughout the books of the Bible. And if we are to maintain a mature, intelligent, balanced and adult outlook, these deep truths being revealed take time to assimilate. Many are now also turning to the irrefutable truth of the existence of a deeper meaning behind all of this. A divine creator. Our divine creator. And if we can take some time out, alone, in a natural landscape, spend some quality, spacious, quiet time with it, the transcendental nature of reality becomes really quite evident. It becomes so obviously apparent, in fact, that it really couldn't be any other way. We begin to wake up. We learn to see. We learn to hear. We become astonished at ourselves that we missed it in the first place. More and more people are beginning to wake up to the reality that the Creator God is real, that the principles of sound Christian practices as elucidated by Jesus create a truly balanced and healthy, well-functioning society, and there are many who are slowly but surely developing a mature, balanced and responsible relationship with the source of their being. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. So it begs the question then, why did it all become so corrupt in the first place? Well, there are answers to that. Suffice it to say for now that negative forces act against well-being, act against goodness. They set up on pedestals anything other than right action, goodness, truth and God. Look around you. It's everywhere. You're being lied to and actively encouraged to support dysfunction. It's a form of abuse. It doesn't do well to dwell too long on this, though. It might be more helpful to see it as a job description, a role being fulfilled for a certain purpose. Nor does it mean that we put our pants on the outside of our trousers, don our capes, and rush off into saving the world either. If superheroes still dress like that, that is. The only real important point for us to take away from this is to decline falsehood, behave with integrity, and learn of, develop, and integrate faith, navigating as best we can what is presented to us to observe and master, whatever that might be. It means hearing and adhering to God's counsel. He requires our deepest sincerity and truth in the very innermost of our being. That's all. That's enough for him. In terms of who we are and what we're witnessing, faith in the lesson. Faith is the lesson. Faith working through love. We too, then, must become faithful witnesses as far as we are able. We must rise above the fear-inducing clamour and the appearance of chaos. We must manage our thoughts and emotional reactions to the reverberations of the unbalanced state, retain a sense of quiet strength and humble dignity, and refuse to get drawn into the attempts to create disorder and discord. We must view all this from a broader, deeper, higher perspective. Within cyclical 7 and structural 3, something new is formed. A story of a death foretold, a new age ordained, forged and evidenced in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We have spirit as a guarantee. It is already, and it is not yet, not of this time. So in terms of eschatology then, or the end of the age, while it's not something that concerns me at all, destruction is inbuilt into the creation of time. My personal feeling is we have just a little way to go yet. I do come across more and more people who are talking about it though, and who regularly drop it into everyday conversation, much like we do the weather. During the course of my daily work, in which I'm fortunate enough to be able to evangelize, teach, offer therapeutic support, love, humour and comfort, I was sitting with a lady in her 80s and the subject turned to reading. I mentioned my fondness for medieval Christian mystics, and she enthusiastically launched into a long explanation about how and why she was totally into eschatology, and shared what she'd discovered. These kinds of specific and the more general conversations about God with the man on the street are happening and have happened to me increasingly often over the past 15 years in Britain. Almost daily now, I'd say, thank God. While no one knows that day or hour, my feeling is that we do actually have something to do with it. And I know that the sooner we recognise that the cognitive dissonance caused by brainwashing ourselves into believing that lies can be true, and recognise the danger of moral relativism, and turn in sincerity to what is wholesome, natural and true, which people are crying out for, and the sooner we open our hearts to the awareness of a Creator and creation that has a real purpose, and the sooner we become reconciled to that Creator and realise how He is acting in our lives daily, then the sooner we shall see Him. Then He who sat on the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new." And He said to me, "Write, for these words are true and faithful." And He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Thanks for listening.